Stoics, welcome back to Anonymous Achiever. Let me ask you something. How many times have you poured your heart into someone who barely gave anything back? You showed up, you cared, you stayed, even when it was clear they wouldn't do the same for you. And now, they're gone. Or maybe you finally walked away. Either way, you're left with silence. And silence is powerful. It speaks louder than words. At first, it feels uncomfortable. There's an urge to reach out, to fix things, to explain yourself. Your mind replays old conversations, wondering if there was something you could have said or done differently. You start to question, do they even care that I'm gone? Are they thinking about me the way I'm thinking about them? And then a deeper fear creeps in. What if they've already forgotten me? But here's the truth. The most powerful thing you can do, the thing that will shake them to their core, is to say nothing at all. This video isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about realizing that silence isn't weakness, it's strength. It's about watching how the absence of your energy transforms the very people who once took you for granted. People get used to having you around. They get comfortable knowing you'll always reach out, always be available, always be the one to fix things. But when you finally stop chasing, when you remove yourself from the equation, it forces them to experience a reality where you no longer exist in their world. And that's when everything shifts. The philosopher Blaise Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." When you go silent, they are forced to sit with themselves, without your love, without your reassurance, without your presence, to distract them from their own emptiness. And that's when it starts to sink in. The absence of your voice becomes deafening. The weight of their choices becomes undeniable. So today we're breaking down the 5 stages that happen when you choose silence after a one-sided relationship. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why silence is the most powerful response you can give. And I want you to affirm this in the comments. My silence is my strength. Let's begin. Number 1, the realization stage. At first, they don't notice. Your silence doesn't seem significant to them. They assume it's temporary, that you're just giving them space, cooling off, or waiting for the right moment to reach out. After all, that's how it's always been, right? You've always been the one to mend things, to check in, to fight for the connection, even when they showed little effort. In their mind, they hold the power, the certainty that you'll come back because you always have. But then something shifts. The hours turn to days, the days stretch into weeks, and suddenly, what they took for granted, your presence, your messages, your care, is gone. They check their phone, expecting to see your name, expecting a text, a call, a small sign that you're still there, still thinking about them. But nothing comes. And that's when it hits them. This isn't a pause. This is real. They start to realize that your silence isn't a tactic. It's not some ploy to get their attention. It's not a phase. It's a statement that says, I am done giving my energy to someone who never valued it. That realization is a slow burn. At first, they brush it off, convincing themselves that you're just being dramatic, that you'll break sooner or later. But as more time passes, doubt creeps in. What if they're actually moving on? What if I was wrong to assume they'd always be there? This is where the shift begins. Not just for them, but for you. Because in your silence, in your decision to step back, you start to see things clearly too. You realize how much energy you spent chasing someone who never met you halfway. You recognize how often you overlooked red flags, how much you tolerated just to feel close to them. You see, maybe for the first time, that the love you were giving wasn't being returned in the way you deserved. And here's the most powerful part. You start to feel peace. Not at first, of course. At first, it's uncomfortable. You may battle the urge to break the silence, to check in, to explain yourself. But with every day that passes, you feel a little lighter. The emotional weight you carried, the waiting, the hoping, the second-guessing, starts to fade. You begin to remember who you were before you bent yourself to fit into their world. And this is when they start to panic. Because they realize that your love, your presence, your attention was never guaranteed. It was something you gave freely, something they should have cherished. But they didn't. And now they are left sitting in the emptiness they created. They replay old conversations, wondering when things changed. They scroll through messages, hoping to find a sign that you might still be waiting. But all they find is silence, and you've taken your power back. Because the truth is, the people who never truly valued you will only realize your worth when your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. So let me ask you, will you let them pull you back in, or will you continue choosing yourself? Number 2. The indifferent stage. Once you accept that they don't deserve your energy, something incredible happens. You stop caring. You no longer check your phone, hoping they'll reach out. You stop wondering if they miss you. You stop analyzing their every move, trying to decode their silence or their social media activity. The emotional roller coaster that once dictated your mood finally slows down, and eventually it stops altogether. This is where true strength is built, because indifference is stronger than hate, stronger than love, stronger than any emotion they were expecting from you. They may have expected you to lash out, to beg, to try to make them feel guilty. Maybe they thought you'd try to get their attention, that you'd post something dramatic or send a long message about how they hurt you. But you don't. And that silence, that lack of reaction, is something they never anticipated. See, as long as you were emotionally invested, whether in love, anger, sadness, or frustration, they still had power over you. They knew they could occupy space in your mind, that they could push and pull you as they pleased. Even if you were upset, you were still engaged. And engagement, in any form, meant that you still cared. But when indifference takes over, that's when you become truly free. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And this is exactly where you are. You have power over yourself now. You realize that their choices, their behavior, and their absence are no longer your concern. You don't waste time wondering if they're happy without you, if they regret their actions, or if they'll ever come back. Because deep down, you know it doesn't matter anymore. And while you're moving on, they start feeling the weight of your silence. At first, they may have assumed you were just playing a game, that sooner or later, you'd break, you'd reach out, you'd show them you still care. But as more time passes, they begin to notice something different, something unsettling. You're not just staying silent, you're thriving in your silence. Maybe you're laughing more, spending time with people who appreciate you, pouring your energy into things that actually fulfill you. Maybe you've even glowed up, mentally, emotionally, or even physically. You're no longer the person who waited for their attention, who held on to hope, who put them on a pedestal. And this is when panic starts to creep in. They start to wonder, why aren't they reacting? Why aren't they hurt? Why do they seem happier? Because let's be real, people who take you for granted never expect you to truly let go. They expect you to struggle, to chase, to wait in the background for them to realize your worth. But when they see that you've detached, that you've emotionally cut them off, that's when it stings the most. Because nothing is more painful than realizing you no longer have an effect on someone who once cared deeply for you. Indifference is the final nail in the coffin. It tells them, without words, that their presence or absence in your life is completely irrelevant. And that's a feeling they never expected to face. So while they sit in their own confusion, feeling the weight of their own decisions, you keep moving forward. Because indifference isn't just an absence of emotion, it's proof that you've healed, that you've won. Number 3, the regret stage. This is where the tables turn. Suddenly, the person who once seemed indifferent to your absence begins to feel it. The silence they once ignored now follows them everywhere. It lingers in their quiet moments, in the spaces where your voice used to be, in the little routines that once included you. At first, they try to brush it off. They fill their time with distractions, work, friends, social media, even new relationships. They convince themselves that life moves on, that they don't need you, that they made the right choice. But no matter how much they try to suppress it, the loss starts creeping in, and then it hits them. Maybe it happens when they see something that reminds them of you. A song, a place, an inside joke that only the two of you understood. Maybe it happens when they go through old messages, trying to remember exactly when things started to fall apart. Or maybe it's something deeper, something they can't quite put into words. They start replaying old conversations in their head. The way you laughed, the way you supported them when no one else did, the way you made even the smallest moments feel special. And now they feel the loss. At first, they try to fight it. They tell themselves that it's just nostalgia, that they're only missing the comfort, not the person. But as time passes, they begin to realize the truth. They didn't just lose a relationship, they lost you. And you were rare. You were one of a kind. No one else brought the same warmth, the same energy, the same depth of care that you did. They start to see that the things they once took for granted were never guaranteed, that the love and attention they received so effortlessly from you was actually a gift, one they never properly appreciated. And now, it's too late. Regret starts to settle in. And regret, that's one of the heaviest emotions a person can carry. Because regret isn't just about missing someone, it's about realizing that you had something special and you let it slip away. They think about all the times they dismissed your feelings, all the times they made you feel like you were too much for wanting basic love and respect. They wonder what would have happened if they had just been a little more present, a little more appreciative, a little more aware. And then comes the worst part. They realize you're not waiting for them anymore. They check their phone, half expecting to see your name pop up, but it never does. They scroll through your social media, hoping to find some hint of sadness, some sign that you're struggling without them. But instead, they see something else. You're glowing, you're smiling, you're living, you're surrounded by people who appreciate you in ways they never did. And suddenly, the regret turns into something deeper, because now they know you moved on. And they're stuck in the past, holding on to memories of someone who no longer belongs to them. Number 4, the replacement stage. Some people, when faced with the reality of losing you, won't take the time to reflect or heal. Instead, they'll try to replace you. They'll jump into another relationship, hoping to fill the void. They'll chase the excitement of something new, convincing themselves that moving on quickly is the best way to forget. Maybe they'll post pictures, hoping you'll see them happy with someone else. Maybe they'll start acting as if they found something better. But here's what they won't admit. Deep down, they know. They know that no one will ever be you. Because the truth is, you weren't just someone to pass time with. You weren't just a momentary distraction, a convenience, or a placeholder. You were someone who actually cared. Someone who saw them for who they were, their flaws, their insecurities, their deepest struggles, and still chose to love them. You were someone who gave them a kind of love they may never experience again. At first, they'll try to convince themselves that they're fine, that they've moved on, that replacing you was easy. But as time passes, they'll start to notice the difference. With you, they never had to pretend. With you, they didn't have to put on a show to prove anything, to constantly seek validation. You made them feel seen, valued, understood in a way that was rare. And that kind of connection, that's not something you can replace overnight. So what do? They try to force it. They try to recreate what they had with you, molding their new relationship into something that resembles the comfort and depth they once felt. But it doesn't work. Because what you gave was real. What you gave wasn't something they can manufacture with someone else. And this is when the panic sets in. They start questioning everything. Why does this new relationship feel so empty? Why don't I feel the same spark, the same warmth? Did I make a mistake by letting them go? Because no matter how much they try to run from it, they can't escape the truth. You weren't just an option. You were the option, and they lost you. This realization doesn't always come immediately. It might take weeks, months, even years for them to truly understand what they let go of. Some people will cycle through multiple relationships, searching for something that even remotely compares. But deep down, they'll always remember you. They'll remember the way you made them feel. They'll remember how effortlessly you loved them, how much you gave, how deeply you cared, even when they didn't deserve it. They'll remember how safe it felt to be around you, how easy it was to be themselves. And then they'll realize the worst part. You're not looking back. You're not waiting for them to wake up, to come running back, to finally see your worth. Because by now, you don't care anymore. By now, you've already built a life that no longer revolves around them. And that's what will haunt them the most. Not just losing you, but knowing that they had their chance and they wasted it. Number 5, the breakdown or growth stage. At this point, they have two choices. They either break down or they grow. Some will spiral. They'll feel the weight of their own mistakes. They'll realize that their silence, the very thing they used to ignore you, is now coming back to haunt them. The silence they once dismissed as insignificant now feels suffocating. The absence of your energy, your presence, your kindness will become undeniable. For the first time, they are forced to sit with themselves. Without your reassurance, without your constant effort to fix things, without the comfort of knowing you'll always be there. And for some, that realization will be unbearable. They might try to numb it. They'll throw themselves into distractions, partying, work, meaningless connections, anything to avoid facing the reality of what they lost. But no matter how much they try to escape it, the truth will always catch up to them. They will remember how much they took you for granted. They will remember the moments when they had the chance to appreciate you, to treat you better, to reciprocate the love and effort you so freely gave, but they didn't. And that regret will weigh on them in ways they never expected. They might even reach a breaking point where they realize that the very thing they once believed they could live without was actually the one thing that made their life better. For some, this stage is painful, but it leads to growth. They'll recognize how badly they handled things. They'll acknowledge their mistakes, not just to themselves, but maybe even to you. They might reach out, hoping for another chance, hoping to undo the damage. They might apologize, express their regret, and try to convince you that they've changed. But by now, it's too late, because something has happened that they never expected. You've grown. You've outgrown the version of yourself that accepted breadcrumbs. You've outgrown the cycle of giving and giving while receiving nothing in return. You've outgrown the idea that your worth is tied to someone else's validation. You no longer crave their attention, their approval, or their presence, because now you've built a life that no longer includes them. And that's where the true power of silence lies. It doesn't just change them, it transforms you. When you first chose silence, it might have felt uncomfortable. It might have felt like a battle between your heart and your mind, a constant urge to reach out, to explain yourself, to seek closure. But as time passed, you realized that silence itself was the closure you needed. Silence gave you the space to heal, to reflect, to recognize just how much you were giving to someone who never truly deserved it. And now, you're not just surviving without them, you're thriving. You've rediscovered yourself in ways you never thought possible. You've channeled all the love, energy, and care you once poured into them back into yourself. You've cultivated self-respect, confidence, and a new standard for what you will and won't accept in your life. You're no longer willing to entertain people who make you question your worth, who treat your love as an afterthought, who expect you to always be the one to fix things. And this is what they never saw coming. They expected you to wait. They expected you to be there whenever they decided they wanted you again. But you didn't wait. You walked away and became someone they can no longer reach. And now they have to live with the consequences of their choices. For some, this will be the wake-up call they desperately needed. Maybe losing you will finally force them to grow, to change, to become better. But by the time they do, it won't be for you. It will be for someone else, because you've moved on. And for others, the regret will stay with them. The breakdown will continue because they will never find another you. They might move forward, but they will always look back. They will always wonder what could have been, if only they had appreciated you when they had the chance. But none of that matters anymore, because your silence wasn't about them. It was about reclaiming your power. It was about choosing yourself. And in doing so, you didn't just walk away from them, you walked into the best version of yourself. So here's the truth. Silence is not about them. It's about you. It's about choosing yourself, protecting your energy, and refusing to beg for love, attention, or respect. You hold the power now, and when you embrace that, you become unstoppable. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence speaks louder than words. Let me know, have you ever used silence to reclaim your power? What happened? Remember, you deserve the best. Never settle for less. What are your views on this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I will personally read all of your comments. And if you seriously want to level up in life, don't forget to show some love by hitting the like and subscribe button. Stay strong. Until next time.